Hello, everybody, and welcome to the newest episode of Technically Trek. I am your host, Dave Prime, and over there to my right, which is I'm pointing left, but is my witchy Captain Katie. How are you doing today, my dear?
I'm alive.
That is good.
Just. I've
Let's.
had a busy week. It's been a week. But I'm alive. I survived. Um, I managed to get about an hour's snooze, not sleep, but snooze before the show.
Yay.
But that's all I seem to have been doing recently. For the last couple of weeks, I've been snoozing, not sleeping. I
Uh-oh.
think I've slept once, and that was for about 2 hours.
Oh no, Katie, don't go away.
So I apologise if I tonight.
There you are. You're back. Maybe.
What do you
Hello.
mean I'm back?
No, you dipped off from me for about 10, 15 seconds.
Oh no, I'm here.
Oh, the internet's oh dear. Yeah, my Wi-Fi is going way down. I don't know what's going on with that. Hopefully, we don't that's the extent of our technical difficulties for this evening. Same,
Very
but
hopeful.
what's that?
Very hopefully. I mean,
Yes.
we will have technical difficulties with my braining ability, but that's nothing new.
Yeah, I can relate. Blonde hair ADHD. See, I always say that's two strikes against me.
You
But
see, I can't even say that. I mean, I have a very strange, like, dirty blonde streak at the back of my head. It's not even a streak, it's like a really weird patch, but there's a long story behind that. And I blame that
mm,
on my ditziness.
but
But there's only so long that I can blame that for.
mm,
So the rest of it comes with lack of sleep.
I'll say I might invest in a Wi-Fi booster so I can put it eh, towards the center of the apartment building that I'm in, which if you kind of notice the background, it's going to be changing over the next couple weeks. If you missed out last week, I have moved. I am in a sober living home right now to further my sobriety. This Friday will be 8 months sober.
Woohoo! Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Try not to get emotional over that, but yeah, say, and if people have been noticing an absence, Dangerous Thoughts has moved to Wednesdays. A big shout out to Mickey Sun and Tyson for their weekly podcast. Since I moved my Wednesday to Monday, they took my Wednesday slot, so they'll still be on at
That's
6
what happens with
Pacific,
the
9
Twitter
Eastern.
spaces, though.
And say we don't have a lot of time. Saying part of my living conditions, I have to go to an AA meeting tonight, so we're going to end this in 90 minutes ish. And but let's bring on the one person that's joined us so far tonight, Mr. Tyson. How's it going, sir?
Pretty good, pretty good. Um, you know, it, Almost feel like putting a hot dog on a stick and sticking it out the window and letting the wildfires cook it for me, and then
I've been
eating
keeping
my
up
hot.
to date with that.
Yeah,
It's
Southern California is warm. A lot of fires going on. We have the Pacific Palisades. I want to say the uh, uh, Altadena, and there's another one. There's a third one. Oh, three of them are very much active. I think two of them are like 15% contained. The bad news is that tonight the wind has already started to whip up,
Mm,
and there's Santa Ana winds coming from all the way from Ventura through San Diego County, and those we've already been notified that we're on alert that our power could get shut off because of the red flag and the
mm,
fire conditions. Um, for those not from California, just for perspective, San Diego County is about 120 miles or 200 kilometers from Los Angeles, where the fires are. So we're not in any danger. We're all very fine. Everything is good here. Um, but we are still close enough that we're largely part of the same weather system. Meaning, if they're having those super high winds, we're having those super high winds. It's all part of that same jet stream. So the threat of fire, the drought conditions, all of that still exists here in Ramona and San Diego County the way they exist in Los Angeles. In fact, we had a fire earlier today, but boy, the firefighters weren't playing today. Like as soon as that fire erupted, I mean, it was like a military attack, and it was put out. I don't even think it got to a whole acre before they.
The start of the fires has been ruled as arson, though, hasn't it?
Some of them in Los Angeles at its peak, I think there were 5 or 6 fires at different times. Not all of them have been ruled arson, but a couple of them may have been. The problem is we're having a once in 100-year windstorm that started on January 7th, died down, picked up, died down, and now it's picking up again. And what happens is we don't have underground in the rural areas where it's the most windy. We don't have underground power cables. We have those old telephone poles, that you've seen on TV. And when you have a horrible drought, this has been the driest start to the rain season. We haven't had any rain. It's been the driest for 178 years. All the brush is dried, and when it's really windy, all it takes is a branch off a tree caught in the wind to touch those power lines, and it sparks off a fire. And in winds that are 80 miles an hour, which is like 130, 140 kilometers an hour. I mean, those kind of winds just whip fire, like a blowtorch, and it can spread in a matter of minutes, doubling in size, tripling in size. So we have to be so careful, and that's why they turn off the power in communities like mine when we have high winds and dry brush, because it's fire danger.
You need rain.
We need rain. We need the winds to slow down, and this is very arid, very arid. And what's worse is a couple of years ago, we had one of the rainiest seasons in our history. So what that meant was a couple of years ago that all that rain created all this vegetation, so much vegetation. And then the drought, the horrible drought and all the dryness and the heat, it was the hottest year on record for the planet Earth, not just where I live. Hottest year on record, 2014, hottest year on record. So now all this brush, all this vegetation that grew a couple of years ago when we had all that rain is all bone dry. And Santa Ana winds dry it out even further. And so you have all this dry condition, low humidity, rapid winds, and it just takes one long branch to touch the power lines, and
zap.
You have a Pacific Palisades incident. It's awful, but it's the price you pay for it. We get those, and we get earthquakes, wildfires, and earthquakes. That's what you get in Southern California.
Yeah, see, I got a message from Phil. He's not going to be able to make it tonight. He might be able to make the tail end of it, but just like in 80 minutes from now, we got to pull the plug, because again, like AA commitments to be able to live here. So let's talk about Death Wish, a very sensitive, touchy topic for a lot of people when it comes to assisted suicide. And hopefully we will get at least a few more people in the discussion, but try not to get all choked up over it. What are you guys' opening thoughts from the start of the episode?
I don't think it was in the same vein that we think of assisted suicide today. Today, I don't think anybody agrees that if somebody is in perfect health, that for emotional reasons, like, I just don't feel like living, that it's okay to assist. Currently, I think all countries that even allow assisted suicide only allow it for terminally ill and people who are in just excruciating pain that is uncontrollable. So, I mean, there's, very tight knit of circumstances before it's okay. And even in those cases, like there's some states like California where it's not okay. It's illegal. Assisted suicide's illegal.
It is here at the moment as well, but there's a lot of there's been a lot of meetings in Parliament at the moment about euthanasia, and we think that it is going to be brought into law that under certain circumstances, euthanasia is acceptable. And I can actually see the mandate going through and for that being brought into law, which there's a lot of stipulation about it, but there's also a lot of negativity towards it as well, because of what it is. And I mean, my thoughts on it have always been, well, if you have an animal and they are suffering and all they are is in pain, they cannot facilitate, they're losing control of their bodily functions, they are in so much pain, there is nothing that can do, and the rest of their days is a slow, painful death. We do the humane thing and we take them to the vets and we put them to sleep, euthanasia. And I mean, me, myself, and I, if I was ever to get to that point in my life, I would want to go to a clinic and end my life with dignity. I would not want to waste away and spend the last of my days in excruciating pain. However, I do believe that if someone is in the same mind as myself, and that is what they want, then a few things do need to be undergone, just to clarify that there is no mental instability, that this is truly what they want. They are thinking of it on a very logical level, like a Vulcan level, and it's put on their medical records, kind of like a DNR, that it's like put on their medical records, like as soon as possible. Like if I could put it on my medical records now, that if I get to a certain point where I cannot control my bodily functions, I become incontinent, I am in so much pain, and this, that, and the other. If I could put all that on my medical records right this minute and say, look, if I get to that point, euthanasia is what I want, I would do that right this second. And I would expect to even just one therapy appointment just to make sure, everything is above board. And so they know that I am thinking with a clear mind. But it would always, up to a certain point, you would be able to change your mind.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. These are the three reasons that they consider it different for animals and humans, at least in the States. And I'm not saying I agree. I'm saying this is what they put forward. There's the religious aspect. A lot of people don't agree with it on religious grounds. Now, for whatever reason, and I believe in separation of church and state, but people have religious views, and human being has a soul, and it's different if you kill a human versus an animal. I don't agree with that. That's issue one that some people have. Two, a human is making a conscious decision to kill or to be killed, where an animal, like, they don't know you're taking them to the vet to put them down. They don't know. They don't know death is coming. They don't, so there's no sense of one's annihilation. You know what I mean? They don't have that perspective. They don't know. We know. And so there's that knowledge. And then finally, the third is that with human beings, typically we have the option of being sedated, given pain medication, made comfortable until the end of our days. Where an animal, unless you're extremely wealthy, you really can't do that. That's not that they don't have the same medical options. So those are the three main points, between animal and human. Now, let me get to the episode here. Why she struggled. If he was, and Captain pointed this out, right? If you were aged, infirmed, ill,
I think I actually wrote it down.
On the cusp of death, that might be one thing. But he wasn't ill, he wasn't sick. Physically, he was in, perfect health. And that, I think, is what made it controversial. What they tried to say was that being immortal, when you've seen it all, when you've done it all, and there's no end to existence, that makes it existentially, right? That's when you death is the only change that could happen. And you're so tired of everything else. And so I get that. But then again, here's the flip side, and this is the worrisome. Let's assume that you believe that humans have a soul and that we exist in a conscious form after death, not as disembodied energy that has no consciousness. But say when you die, you are aware of you, and you still live, just in a different form, whether it be spirit, energy, however you want to call it. Then we're going to be faced with the same prospect that Q was faced with, right? Because once you're in that state, you're immortal. Once you're in that state, it's eternal. What happens when you get to that state and then you stay that way forever? Are you going to want to die like Q did? That's the scary thing to me. Like, when I think about it, I think about, why does Q want to die? Because he's immortal, because he's eternal, and because nothing ever changes. But in the Christian religion, as I was taught, we die, we go to heaven, but that's what heaven is, right? It's eternal. It's forever. Would we ever get to that point? It's a scary
Very
thought.
possibly. Very possibly. I don't believe the same as you, Tyson. I don't. And I do respect your religion. I respect your beliefs and your path of life. How I believe is that when this existence ceases, our energy gets renewed into the universe, and we may evolve to a point of immortality. But I also believe that we also have the option to some degree reincarnate, and for our energy to become something else. And I mean, when I leave this meat sack, as Manu usually calls it, my energy, I believe that my energy will evolve. It will go to somewhere else. But I also believe that state of being is still renewable. And
it is. But let's say that one of my cellular structures, one of my cells in my skin, ends up being in a flower somewhere, and this cell over here ends up being in a tree somewhere, and this cell on my fingernail becomes something over there. Every part of me would be diluted and ambiguated across wherever, and my consciousness, my seeing, hearing, my ability to be is gone. It's because it needs all those parts to have a consciousness. If it's just diluted into the universe, then you lose you. You are gone forever. Your energy is there, but you are gone. It's like taking a glass of water and pouring it into the ocean. The water's still there, but it, as it begins to disperse and go away, it'll never come back together into that. You can put the glass of water back, and it's going to be different water. It's not that water you just poured in the ocean. It's just diluted. It's gone. It's there, but it's not there. It's no longer that glass of water. It's kind of like that when we die. It's like pouring a glass of water into the ocean. The me that's me isn't there. And that's scary. That's existential. That's scary too. So either way, if I'm just that glass of water getting poured and my energy just goes all over and I cease to exist, in my mind,
Jeff.
everything's black and it's like gone. It's like being forever asleep. That's scary. Living forever is scary. there's no not scary outcome.
But even immortality, you know, I mean, the one thing that I take from this episode is that, yes, the Q are immortal and that they live forever, that they can't be harmed. You know, I mean, as far as I'm aware, the Q don't even bleed, you know, because they're that immortal, but they still have that option of suicide, euthanasia, whatever. But the Q Continuum as a whole, as a state, they don't want that because it will cause disruption. So therefore, even though they have the option of ending their life once they've done it all, seen it all, and choosing right, there is nothing else that can be done in this life. It's time for me to move on. It's time for me to go. That is being forced upon them. And I have got a quote here from the episode. The individual's rights will be protected only so long as they do not conflict with the state. Nothing is so dangerous to a society. I completely freaking agree with that, because regardless of the collective thinking, regardless of the whole, the individual is what matters. And if that individual, regardless of the you know, the greater scheme of things, if that individual wants to make a decision, whether it's to eat a bar of chocolate, kiss someone of the same sex, or end their life, that is their decision. And if they have thought about it logically, and they have come to the conclusion that this is the only option for them,
you know,
then
the perfect example I want to say is COVID. And I want you to follow me on this. We had a vaccine that was not mandatory, right? Individuals had a right not to have it. And so many individuals chose not to take the vaccine. However, we did impose mandatory social distancing and masking, where you had, if you're out in public, in a public space, you had to wear a mask, like in the grocery store. There were people that started shouting, individual rights, it's my rights. You know, you can't force me to do that. But at what point is the safety of the community and an individual's rights, which have to be respected, when it comes to, you know, I'm an individual, I don't want to wear a mask, I want to go into the store without a mask, and I don't want to be vaccinated. That's my right. But that right that I have could kill other people. If I have it and I don't know I have it and I'm spreading it, other people could die. So at what point does an individual's rights and a community's rights, where's the line that says...
You see that, I completely get what you mean, and that is like a mandatory thing that's forced upon the people for survival. And now, to some degree, I agree. To some degree, I disagree. But
well, that's the conundrum. Everybody,
in my opinion, is not the same kind of correlation to what Quinn in this episode is and what's happening. Basically, the Continuum are saying that it'll just cause extreme disruption. It's not going to necessarily harm anybody else. It's just going to cause extreme disruption. So for me, that is like roadworks, you know, really major roadworks at rush hour. You know, that causes extreme disruption, but nobody is harmed. Sometimes things that cause disruption are needed. Sometimes something that could shake things up a bit is needed. And, you know, it basically, some people are scared of change, of progress. And that is a very human thing. You know, I mean, there has been so many times in history when people have been, even in this day and age, believe it or not, you know, we're in 2025 and people are still being oppressed. You know, people are still being shot down and things like that. But there have been so many times in history when so many people have been oppressed and demonized and criminalized because the greater whole,
the majority versus the minority, of course,
has been scared of something new. Yeah. They've been scared of the shake-up. And this is the whole thing of this episode, to be quite honest. The Q Continuum is scared of change.
Anytime the minority is subject to the whims of the majority, that's absolutely an injustice. What I was saying with my code example wasn't specific to Q's situation. It was specific to the quote you read, where it said an individual's rights, should be respected unless it. How did you? Can you read that again? An individual's rights.
The individual's rights will be protected only so long as they don't conflict with the state. Nothing is so dangerous to a society.
Now that's where I'm disagreeing. The individual's rights, so only so long as they don't conflict with the state, is not necessarily the most dangerous thing. Sometimes the state does things that are in the best interest, whether the individual recognizes that or not. Again, the masking. That's why I brought up the COVID example. You may feel that your rights are infringed. You may feel that you shouldn't have to wear a mask, but we're going to make it mandatory. It may save your life, whether you know it or not. But more importantly, even if you don't care if you die, there are other people that care if they die. And you could be the reason they die if you're not masking up. So that's where I'm saying that the state, in some cases, you may want to drink and drive, and the state may say, we don't want you to drink and drive. There are some times when that statement that you read is not true. There are times when it is true. There's times when that statement is absolutely true, but it's not true.
As a whole, I do believe that it is, because it's like, a lot of laws that are about now, a lot of them, I mean, even right down to the COVID laws, not being funny about, but people shouldn't have needed those laws, because the majority of it is common sense, being humane, being thoughtful of other people, and knowing that, because you see, COVID isn't like flu. Flu is quite discriminatory. COVID is not. COVID does not discriminate the way that flu does. And even though they are cousins, I lost somebody to COVID. No underlying health conditions, very healthy, and I lost them. But then there was other people, like elderly people, who got COVID. They barely had a mild cold, or that's how they felt. This is what I mean.
Because it was a novel.
Discriminatory, like
it was a novel. It was called a novel coronavirus for that reason. It was novel. The human body had never encountered this before. Therefore, it had no antibodies, no antigens, no way to fight it. Yeah. Some people, their bodies adapted quickly and they fought it off. Other people succumbed to it and died. It was a hit or miss. Where with the flu, it's in your genetics. Like your parents had the flu, their parents had the flu, and now the flu comes, you already have antibodies. You have things to fight off the flu. When you get older, or if you have an autoimmune disease or something, you can still die of flu. You can, but it's rare, and it's usually the elderly or people with underlying medical conditions or people who have autoimmune disease, etc. But in most cases, the flu and the cold and common illnesses that our bodies have built a resistance to over time. But with the coronavirus, it was novel. The human body had never seen this before.
And a lot of
they all reacted differently.
Well, yeah, but this is what I mean. Because of that, a lot of the laws that were made, like the social, fair enough, the social distancing, just to try and, I was quite thankful of that. I mean, in all honesty, in our I don't know about in America, but in our supermarkets and things, we had a one-way system in our supermarkets, our shopping malls. I loved that, especially in a shopping mall, because it made things so easy. And I wish they still had that one-way system, because it made things so much easier. But as soon as the pandemic left, it was just like, why haven't you?
I love that in my grocery store. They had one
it's
queue.
Just common sense,
right?
And if you have to make a law on common sense, what is this world coming to?
I want to say how much I missed the one queue. Like, if you're at a grocery store and there might be 6 registers to check for people to check out. They had one queue. You had to stay 6 feet apart, and they would, when the next lane opened, they would say, okay, open here, and then you would go. As opposed to the original style, which is people just queue up behind whatever register they want, and inevitably, you always get in the slowest line. Doesn't matter. I don't care who you are. When there's 6 lanes open and you stand in queue at the grocery line, you always get into the slowest line, and you watch everybody else get checked out before you. Never fails. So I loved it when they had one queue and it fed into the other, I love that. I miss that.
Well,
Yeah, I do.
we got less than an hour, so let's kind of start jumping into like This is a great conversation. I'm glad I chose this episode both Kitty and I chose this episode to talk about. And next week's episode I should have done earlier in the month, but we'll talk about that later. But
can I just know what the episode is so I can watch it this time before the show?
Heart of Stone from Deep Space Nine.
Heart of Stone. Let me write that down because I didn't watch. I mean, I remember the episode just from my memory of what we're talking about.
It's the big Nog episode, and then Hera and Odo.
What is the season?
Season 3, or let me look it up.
I have no idea. To be quite honest, I won't know until next week.
season 3, episode 14.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, the problem is that I never know what it is, and then by the time I remember it's time to hop onto your show and I see what it is, I'm like, okay, let me see if I can remember what that episode was. This time I can make a point to watch the damn episode before the show.
I'm gonna say so. Yeah, the next week's going to be Big Heart of Stone, and then the next after that, we're going to talk about the Section 31 movie.
Yes.
Because it will have already aired, right?
Yes, it's going to air the weekend.
When is it coming out? The 31st?
The 24th.
24th.
24th. So usually it's on a Thursday, but because I guess it's a movie, they're doing it on a Friday instead. So
I can't wait. I've seen previews. I'm sure we've all seen little spoilers here and there.
No, I haven't.
Oh, you haven't?
No,
don't watch them. I don't watch them because I don't do spoilers, do I?
I'm not gonna say anything from the spoilers or any of the trailers that I've seen, but I did see like 3 different trailers and a couple of spoilers, and I am dying to see this movie. Of course, and this isn't a spoiler. This I think everybody knows. It stars Emperor. What's her name?
Michelle Yeoh.
Giorgio. Michelle Yeoh.
Or Michelle.
Philippa Giorgio.
Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle Yeoh. So she's the primary star. I don't know if that Klingon/human guy, because he also joined Section 31.
I will say that, but like this is going to be during Rachel Garrett's life, so this is like early 24th century. So there's another time jump there, hitting up the lost era of between TOS and Next Generation. So, I mean, Klingons do live have long lives, so she should still be alive.
They put her back to her time, right?
No.
Oh,
well, maybe, but they kind of.
So when she walked through the gate, I think what I remember the Guardian saying was she has to go back to her time.
Mm-hmm.
That's when she walked through the gate. Now, my assumption, and I could be wrong, was that Section 31 would be within that original, season 1, season 2 of Discovery timeline, because that's where Giorgio's from, that timeline. And if she is in that timeline, then so is the Klingon dude in that timeline who joined Section 31.
Ash Tyler, yep.
So he's also in that timeline. He's also Section 31. Now, none of the spoilers have mentioned him. I don't know. No, I'm just saying he could be.
Yeah, Katie, I think she looked it up. It's not.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't really looked into it, but one thing I do know is that I mean, I did look into this one specific thing, but this was before a Section 31 movie was actually confirmed, and there was only rumors. And one thing well, unless it's like being held back as a complete and utter surprise that nobody is letting on about, Ash Tyler is not going to be part of a Section 31 movie.
Is anybody from Trek that we know going to be in it besides her?
Not that I'm aware of, no. Apart from, is her name Philippa?
Yeah,
Philippa Georgia is
Giorgio.
Philippa, nobody that we know is going to be in it. So it's going to be like completely new. And to my knowledge, there are going to be no cameos.
Okay, well, it's still going to be good. Now, in Discovery, we did see her join Section 31, right? For a little while, she did, or she was approached by Section 31.
Yeah, because there was the guy, Leland.
Yeah, I thought there was already a Section 31 connection with her before this, but
yeah, there is, because she left Discovery to go work for Section 31 with Leyland.
We all know how that ended.
Yeah, he got taken over by Control, didn't he?
Yep.
You know what? I don't care what anybody says. This new Star Trek is just as infectious as the old Star Trek. And when I say old Star Trek, I mean TNG through Enterprise, right? Those are the Star Treks that aired on television. Those are the ones that were pre-streaming service. And then you have the streaming service Star Treks, which is everything from Discovery on. So Discovery, Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, Prodigy, and what am I missing? There's 5. Discovery.
Strange New Worlds?
Oh, Picard.
Picard.
So those are the 5 Star Trek. You've got like 6 Star Treks pre-streaming and then 5 Star Treks post-streaming. And the 5 streaming Star Treks are good. Maybe Prodigy, not. It is designed for younger audience. I liked it and I watched it.
Yeah, I watched season 2 and was just blown away that this is for kids. What?
Right. You know,
those loom. What, Katie?
Prodigy was boring as hell.
Well, you didn't make it through all 2 seasons, so
that's because it was boring as hell. You know, I struggled with that more than I struggled with season 1 of Discovery, and everybody knows it took me about 3 months to get through season 1 of Discovery, when usually I can get through like a 24 episode season in like a day and a half to 2 days because of my insomnia. And it took me 3 months to get through season 1 of Discovery. I struggled more with Prodigy than I did with Discovery, and that is saying something.
Yeah, there are some shows. I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan, right? Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball. But the first couple of times I tried watching the original Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z, Super, GT, but the original, when Goku was still a little kid. Like the first couple of times I started it, I'm like, it's slow, it's boring, I don't like And so earlier last month, I decided to just knuckle down and do it. And once I got past like the 7 episodes, I really started getting into it. And by the end of it, I loved it. Now I love, the original. But I mean, it some things take a while for you to, the first couple of shows drag, and then once you're into it, it's really good. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, one thing that I like about more like the well, one thing I love in Star Trek is that they, I mean, I don't really know much about Prodigy, just that I actually nearly fell asleep watching it. It was that boring. But they the episodes delve into real life, and they bring up a lot of talking points, especially this episode, Death Wish, because, you know, I mean, there is so much going on in this episode, and there's more going on in it than people realize. And as well, you two certainly know. I'm not sure our viewers really know this by now, but when I watch something, when I read something, I don't just watch or read it, and I don't look at just the initial storyline. I delve so deep, and I look at every aspect of everything, especially the emotional and the psychological side of things. And this episode especially is one of the deepest episodes, in my opinion, that Star Trek have done, because it's not just a taboo subject. I mean, especially back then it was as well when it aired, but even to this day, it's a very taboo subject, and people don't like talking about it. But also, it's kind of political and it's personal.
DS9 did that,
even Janeway said she has got an aversion to suicide, to euthanasia. You know, she had to put her personal feelings aside to be completely impartial, and that is an extremely difficult thing to do. And I mean, Kate Mulgrew, she played that part so well, and I cannot fault her for it. She was on point with everything, and you could see, even right down to the look in her eyes, you could see the turmoil, the struggle, that she was struggling with her own personal feelings on this, but also she wanted to encourage him to carry on his life and live out his mortal life.
Yeah, that's another thing that kind of disappointed me too, is that Q didn't take her up on that. You know, to say, hey, I'm mortal now, which means I will eventually die of old age.
Well, hopefully you'll not die before you and Travis get married, because he's just doing the chat.
Hopefully. Well, I mean, if Q were to be, you know, made mortal as he was, and he appeared to be in his late 40s, so he would only have, and I think, you know, people lived about 120 in Star Trek at that time, so, you know, he might only have, you know, 80 years to go. And considering he's been immortal all this time, you know, 80 years is a blink of an eye. He could have just existed as a human, since he's never, you know, existed for that period of time. Well, he has existed a human in the past, but I guess that's right.
He's taken human form. He hasn't.
He's taken human form. So he's never existed as a human. He's always been Q, but in human form, he could always snap his fingers and go. Like, he would have been mortal, like powerless by you know, those standards. I have to dip for just 1 second. I'll be right back, Travis, though, so don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
Hello, everybody.
Hey,
Hello,
Travis.
Travis, my darling. Mwah.
Hey. Sorry I'm late. I was sleeping. It's been
You sound tired.
it's been, these last couple of weeks has been rough. We had this huge snow blizzard that just hit the East Coast and stuff, and it just, I was out of work for 2 days. I didn't even go to work. I could have went to work on Saturday, but it snowed again, and I couldn't go in to work to make up hours and stuff. So we've been dealing with snow and ice and just terrible weather here.
Yes.
You still there, Dave?
Yeah, I'll stay here. Sorry. It's been a long day, but yeah, Jeff brought a good point. Yeah, she had an aversion to suicide and whatnot till she met two Frakes.
I mean, in my opinion, that is a completely different matter. But I mean, Tyson brought up a good point, and that is, why didn't Quinn take her up on the offer of living a mortal life? And now I'm going to get a little personal here, and without going into any detail, but sometimes people don't see another way out. And obviously, with how much Quinn felt that he was suffering, that he had done it all, seen it all, and it was his time to go, he didn't even think that living his mortal life was worth the hassle, basically. And he had lived for so long, seen it, done it, you know, the old saying, been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. And for him to still take his life when he had new experiences as a mortal, to try out new feelings, sensations, he was obviously at a point in his life where he truly did not see any other way out. And I understand that on a personal level. But for him, it was different because he lived for millennia, you know, and he had all these experiences, all this knowledge, and he truly believed that he had accomplished everything he wanted to in his life, and that going on would just prolong his suffering, even as a mortal. So to that extent, I completely respect his decision in that. And like I say, for him to deny the new experiences he could have as a mortal for the first time, he still chose, you know, he still chose the outcome. And that is saying something, you know. And to see death as the only way out, but to meet it with such ferocity and such calm, I have a lot of respect for him for that, you know, because he wasn't mentally unstable. He wasn't fighting a mental illness that took him. He wasn't fighting an actual physical disease. And even he said the disease is immortality. And he felt that he had a terminal illness in a way, because immortality was the terminal illness. And even the prospect of, like I said, even the prospect of mortality, he weighed it up and didn't believe that that was worth prolonging his suffering of still living. And so, you know, I have a lot of respect for him because of that. I know that a lot of people are going to disagree with me. I know people are probably going to think I'm insane, but come on, everybody knows I am. But no, I have a lot of respect for Quinn, and I have a lot of respect for Janeway for granting him asylum, knowing that he was more than likely going to do that, even though she had her.
But you know, you got to love Q's part at the end as well, which I thought was pretty great. And I like Jeff's comment here. He put an aversion until she met Tuvix. No problem killing him. That's pretty funny. But yeah,
I got one thing to say. I'm here late and everything. I'm familiar with. I haven't seen the show in very long, but I am familiar with, this particular, stuff. I'm gonna play. I'm just gonna be completely neutral with this, but I'm gonna say this, and I hope no one gets offended and everything else. But when it
I'm
comes to
offended
stuff,
that you think we'll be offended.
okay, okay, how about this? Um, when people choose, when I use that word literally, choose to take their life, there are people who see them as cowards. When you do something to take your life out of the world of that you live in, people look down upon that, and they look at you, they will look at you as you know a poor miserable soul that literally could not stand that we are all living the same the same world and everything we experience in different ways and stuff, but yet you're going to take the easy way out while the rest of us will continue to march on through our own suffering and
That
agonizing pain and
yeah.
stuff and
Yeah,
everything.
Jeff brought
People
up
will say
a
that.
good. Jeff's like right along the same lines there, Travis. Just like I don't think he saw it as a way out. It was just something else to explore. Death was the one thing no Q has experienced.
That's true.
And to some degree, I agree with that statement, but I think it was a mixture of both things.
There are people who commit suicide. This is different than assisted suicide for ailment or infirmity or pain, or there are people who have either depression or some other
Yes.
people take their own lives. That it was kind of a cross between both, right? That's where Q was at an existential point where it was, I've done everything there, I've experienced everything, there's nothing new in the universe for me to do. So you kind of feel for that aged, infirm, but at the same time there's that you're perfectly healthy, you're perfectly sane, and it's like committing suicide, not assisted suicide, which is different than committing suicide, right? So it had elements of both, which made it extra hard.
And that's a very touchy, if y'all remember in the season 3 opening of Orville. I don't know if anybody ever seen Orville. I don't want to do any spoilers and stuff like that, but
who hasn't seen the Orville? That was great.
Well, season 3, they had a bigger budget and stuff and everything, and the opening, it touched on this. And I don't know if anybody ever seen it, but the opening, episode of season 3 of Orville, wow, it really touched on that and stuff and everything, and it dealt with a lot of what, in a sense, in this episode, but more so on human level and stuff and everything, not like this entity, because you can say the Qs are for just how we put it. The Qs are literally like guardians of the universe. They are literally like gods of the universe. I mean, they are all knowing, all powerful, omnipotent beings. They control space, matter, and time. As we say, they know everything. That for it you ask yourself, Q made Q a human, took his powers away, made him human. In a sense, he made him human and everything else, but yet for Q to die, which they cannot die unless they, take their powers away, or their abilities of immortality and stuff. It goes into a realm of, do the Q have an afterlife? That's a good question. You would think, do the Qs have afterlife? I mean, they're all knowing, all powerful.
If it is an afterlife, is it a different afterlife than a human afterlife, or is every species have its own afterlife? That's a good question. But I do want to tell you something, Travis. I'm very excited because I don't know why I haven't brought this up before. But for years after season 3, There was a big push to get a season 4, and then it wasn't happening. Then it was, and it wasn't, then it was. And you probably saw I even did an X campaign, save Orville, have a season 4. Well, it was just announced. Orville season 4 has been confirmed. It's coming, and they're starting filming this month, January 2025.
Yes.
So filming is starting.
Not to be a Debbie Downer, what was it confirmed on?
It was confirmed on several platforms. So the Trek BBS, Hulu confirms the Orville season 4. Reddit, the Orville confirms season 4. Fandom confirms season 4. Space.com.
Well, if Hulu confirmed it, then yeah, I'm like, yay.
Yeah, Hulu confirmed season 4. So I'll read you just really briefly what it says here. The USS Orville and its crew will embark on another whimsical adventure soon. The Cinemaholic can confirm that Hulu has renewed the science fiction series The Orville for its 4th season. The upcoming installment will start filming in Los Angeles, California in January 2025. Then it goes on into more details. Now, that said, as I'm sure all of you know, last week with all the fires in Los Angeles has put a lot of things on hold. A lot of big games, football games in LA have moved to Arizona temporarily.
I'm watching that right now on TV.
Right? So there's a lot of things that are halted because of the fires. So if it's not a writer's strike, it's an earthquake. If it's not an earthquake, it's a fire. There's always something in LA.
And here on the East Coast, Tyson, we've been dealing with the cold, icy, just almost Arctic blizzard. At one point, a couple of days ago, I literally screenshot it and I sent it to a friend of mine. It was 8 degrees.
Wow.
It was literally 8 degrees.
8 degrees is cold.
It was very, very cold. It was crazy cold. No.
Yeah.
But really, Dave, as he was talking, you know what? Somewhere down the line, we should do some Orville talk. We should do some Orville, some things about the Orville, because Orville has some really good storylines. If Tyson could confirm, it's some really good storylines to them and stuff. Like I said, in season 3, they upped the budget because it moved to Hulu. They upped the budget, and each episode dealt with some really, really personal and some prophetic, things that we all could take. We all can have sympathy for. We just be like, wow, and stuff. I mean, even Katie, I don't know if she's in the Orville, but she would love it.
The Orville, a lot of people joked, was Star Trek's 6th series. Because you had the original Next Gen, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise, then Orville. Because I don't care what anybody says, the Orville is part of the Star Trek family. There's nobody could watch the Orville and not see that was just Seth MacFarlane's version of Star Trek.
He is a huge Star Trek fan.
Yes, 19 degrees. Lovely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're supposed to get to 10 for a high on Sunday.
And it says -6 degrees.
For an overnight low. Yeah.
-9 degrees.
But yeah, look
I'm so jealous.
Wednesday, 50 on Thursday, so.
We're supposed to get down to 14 in about 48 hours.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Not us. The city's aglow.
And just FYI, Travis,
it's been so crazy that we got stuck. We was stuck. A lot of people were stuck in their houses and stuff. Couldn't even get around. You had to dig yourself out. I had to dig my car. It took me at least 20 minutes to get to my car, to dig my car out, and then extra on that 20 more minutes to dig my car out and everything else, because there was snow, ice, snow, and the ice that was formed, it was huge. I mean, it wasn't a thick ice. I mean, it wasn't a thin ice. It was some thick ice. We had some thick ice, and pretty much a lot of people on the side roads and not the main roads, but some of the side roads and stuff in the subdivisions and the back neighborhoods and stuff. Let me tell you, those roads are still frozen. Plus, at night when the temperature drops, black ice.
Yep.
It refreezes. It's black ice, and I tell you, it's dangerous.
So I gotta go. It's
Okay.
Bye, guys. It's after 6, and I got to get ready. By the way,
All right.
just really quick, Captain Katie, did you find that meeting had nothing to do with me, right?
I still don't know, but all I know is that it's been moved to 8, so 8
Okay,
Mountain Time.
That's fine. All right, then. Bye, guys.
All right.
Love you.
Bye, Tyson.
Yeah, but speaking of ice, I wish Tyson was here to see that. Saying the comet that Quinn was locked into, recycled footage from the episode Masks from Next Generation.
Yes.
Yes, it was. It was. That's hilarious. I was like, I can't believe they did that, but they did it. You know.
Oh, they called on two specific like next gen storylines when when Q was stripped of his powers, Deja Q, and then True Q when Tuvok brought up during the trial or during the asylum hearing that 2 members of the Continuum were executed when Amanda Rogers' parents were killed in a
That's
tornado.
right. But they was human. They
took human form, but they still had the powers of Q, and they could not stop
that's
from
why
using
they
their powers.
Executed them.
Yes, and so they promised to continue to leave us alone. We'll keep our powers. We won't do anything. But they started doing things, so the Continuum just like hot dropped a tornado right on their house.
And what about? Let's just give it to Jonathan Frakes. Jonathan Frakes, I tell you, he appeared in before the streaming, before all the streaming, happened and stuff. He appeared in DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise in one form or another.
Exactly.
And the fact that he addressed when he took and addressed Janeway, by her name and said, USS Voyager. It
There's
started
a.
I was like, I remember Janeway said she spent 3 months when she got her promotion to captain. She spent 3 months buried in Voyager schematics. And I try to place where Q plucked that Riker out of time, because he was wearing the com badge. What was he wearing? The old com badge? Yes,
he's wearing this one,
yes,
which would put him pre-generations, which means that he would not have known and Voyager was Janeway's first captaincy.
And that's Generations came out in 1994, right? It was in November. I think it was November of 1994, if I'm not mistaken. And Voyager came out in January of 1996. Or 95.
Katie?
Now, going by the timeline that I've been looking up, he was plucked out of the present. Because it was. Now, going by the timeline that I've seen, sorry, I've got a throat lozenge and my throat is killing me. Like going by the years and stuff, it was after Death Wish, and sometime round about season 3, that first contact happened.
Yeah, but we're talking Star Trek Generations when they switched from this comm badge to the DS9 style comm badge, and during Generations Riker was wearing the DS9 style uniform. So
exactly. So it had to be before the comm badge was changed. It had to be in that time, somewhere before we seen Deep Space Nine debut. Somewhere along in that before they debut, because it for me, for continuity reason, if they're gonna have that com badge on, the old side. It's like, and he said, you know, Janeway USS, Captain Janeway USS Voyager, Captain Janeway USS Voyager. You be like, wait. And then I remember Janeway mentioned she spent, when she got her promotion, she spent 3 months buried in Voyager schematics to learn, about the new class starship that she was given in command. And I'm thinking, just how far back, can you place a little, almost around the same, like, little, that little time frame that, Q plucked Riker out of and stuff. That's just one of the little trivia things that I was, that always bugged me about this particular episode and stuff, because Riker, addressed her. I'm like, well, I mean, if he's wearing that com badge and the old style uniform, and he said her name, that means he's aware of Voyager and he's aware of Janeway.
Mm-hmm.
But, if it was further in the past, he wouldn't have been aware of Voyager and Janeway. So that right there is like kind of that plot hole that just made just like,
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I'm glad you caught that too. So,
well, going by how long Voyager's already been in the Delta Quadrant, Voyager got pulled into the Delta Quadrant in 2371.
69. This episode was in 2371. Oh, hold on. My numbers might be starting to get a little mixed up myself. But let's see.
If it was
23, yeah, Voyager was in 2371. It was in 2371.
Yeah, so going by how long Voyager's already been in the Delta Quadrant, when Death Wish is done, Voyager has been in the Delta Quadrant for 2 years. So this would take it to 2373 ish.
Mm-hmm.
And when Generations happened, that actually happened in 2371, round about the time Voyager was taken into the Delta Quadrant. And at that time, and for a couple of years as well, they were going through a changeover of the uniform. Because I noticed in DS9, with like their comm badges and their uniforms, the same as in Next Generation, when they went for a uniform change, when they got the new uniforms rather than the skin tight ones, there was still like extra cast and random crew members still wearing those bloody mini dresses.
Dance.
So that it does take a few years to a couple of years to transition. So that could be why, because obviously I'd have to do a much deeper dive on this, but from what I can gather, because of the uniform changeover and, the Enterprise D crashing and basically being destroyed was like completely random. Nobody ever expected that to happen. There was no plans on making the Enterprise E. And from what I know, like obviously, as Chris says, fact check me on this. But from what I understand, it wasn't until the D crashed and they realized it really couldn't be salvageable, obviously until Geordi worked his magic many years later, that the Enterprise E was basically, they started drawing up plans to create it. So the Enterprise E wasn't even a twinkle in anybody's eye at that time. So, like, the plans had to be drawn up, and it had to be built. So, I think it was it 2374 when First Contact happened?
And I don't have notes on that, but yeah, it sounds about right. 73 sounds.
So
Yeah.
It was somewhere like around the time of Death Wish. I think it was a little bit after, actually, that First Contact happened.
Oh yeah, First Contact happened after Death Wish.
Well, after yeah.
It was sometime after that, because I'm sure it was in like roundabout season. I'm sure it was like about like 2374 or something. That took place. And at that time, because of the transition from the D to the E, there was a lot going on, and obviously the crew would have been separated and transferred elsewhere, and different ships did have different uniforms. And this is why, as far as I am aware, Riker was pulled from the present.
According to what I looked up, it said this. It is suggested that Commander Riker was pulled, was taken by Q somewhere between the years 2366 and 2370. That explains how his comm badge, which I'm like, I don't understand how it'd be that far back, but that's
because Janeway was not a captain that far back.
But
the Trevor class didn't even exist back then, so
First Contact happened in 2373, and that's the date that I came up with and stuff. But yeah, that was the only nitpick that I always had about this episode when I first seen it. I was like, about the whole, okay, he plucked Commander Riker, but then Riker addressed Janeway as captain of Voyager, and he knew about Voyager, so that means he's aware of Voyager and he's aware of Janeway, but the uniform and comm badge doesn't suggest that. If
doesn't jive,
it doesn't jive unless it was somewhere prior to the changeover of the comm badge and the DS9 style uniforms and stuff. It never really fit in that range about like, what, Q, you plucked him from somewhere. And that's the whole continuity thing about like the writers or the people, trying to put one over us on us fans and stuff and everything, because we will dive deep into like, oh yeah, look, that's the kind of plot hole right there. Come on now, you're making us feel like we're stupid, and we're not, and everything else, and we're gonna be like, look,
wasn't Voyager built? Wasn't now I'm trying to think back to Future's End now. Wasn't Voyager completed in 2368? Wasn't that when it was, or when it was commissioned?
Well, no, the caretaker Voyager was the premiere episode. The start date was 48315.6. So I'm thinking what Travis
Voyager got off in the Delta Quadrant in 2371, but in the episode, the double episode, Future's End, where they go back to 1996, I can't remember his name, the guy who stole the time ship.
Starling.
Starling, that's it. He downloaded all of Voyager's schematics and their database, and he said the year that Voyager was commissioned, and I'm sure he said it was 2368.
No.
It's supposed to be in 2371. And I mean, it takes a good while for the ship to get a ship like that to get built. But the commission date after everything has been, done, like the ship could have been the keel had could been like they could have had laid out the like foundation and stuff like that in 2368. But the final like commission date where they said where they gave their stamp of approval, and said that ship is ready to come off the assembly yard. That was most likely in 2370, 71 and stuff. But I think, you are right, Katie. It probably started, the ship was started there in 2368, but it was commissioned in 2371.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my general perspective. But anywho, ah, yeah, I'm about to get going. I fell asleep earlier, and then I got up. I woke up. I was like, "Oh my god, Dave's show!" And that's why I jumped on. And I've been kind of yawning and stuff. It's been a
That's
long.
okay. Saying and since we got little participation, I think we need to actually revisit this episode
Mm,
maybe in a couple of weeks and kind of talk more because there's still a lot of great things I wrote down. Like one
absolutely.
thing, like one of my favorite quotes was from Q when he first sees Chakotay. "Mm, facial art. Ooh, how very wilderness of you."
Oh, I
Let's talk.
love that.
Let's talk about
I absolutely adore you.
let's
I
talk
do.
about this. They had a Q tug of war by just literally just Voyager was in the middle of their tug of war. Like
Mm-hmm.
Q, well, I should say the Queen. He
When
was like he threw Voyager at the beginning of the universe, and Q was like, "Oh yeah, you think you can hide from me here?" And then they was just going in so many random different places. And the funniest thing is when Voyager was tethered to a planet. It was like, really, really.
Christmas. Voyager was a Christmas ornament, and that was the year Hallmark came out with their Voyager.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. But anyway, it's been fun, guys. Oh my goodness, I love this and stuff.
See, I love Q's reaction to Janeway. That reaction when he takes Voyager off the tree and he turns it round,
Mhm.
and Janeway's just like, "The hell you will," and she lays down the law of her ship, and he's just like,
Oh,
you're angry when you're beautiful," and I'm just
yeah.
like, he's good there.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Although one comment that I did like from Q is when he did a double take of the bridge, and he's just like, "Is this a ship of the Valkyries of human women? What is it? Of Earth women finally done away with their men?"
Yeah.
I remember when I
Crazy.
first saw this episode, and I was just like, "If only." No, it's present company accepted, of course.
And you know what? Janeway thought Q was the Q she heard about from the Enterprise, and it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, so she started freaking
no,
out, and
no, no, no. It's a different Q. I'm like, Voyager introduced us to more Qs besides the other Q that dropped in on what was that Deja Q?
yeah, Corbin Bernstein.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
he
yes.
he played a good Q. But then we had Susie Plax in the female Q. We've had like all
Oh,
those
bitch
Q from
Q,
the
as
Q,
I
the
call
Q,
her.
the Q of the Gray had all those other members of the Continuum
Yeah.
fighting and stuff.
And then
So much,
obviously Q too.
so much interesting things with the Qs and stuff. But anywho, Dave, it's been a pleasure. I enjoyed this, talking about this episode and all,
Yeah,
guys.
we'll talk about it more.
Oh, absolutely,
We'll talk
absolutely.
about not next week. Next week we're talking Heart of Stone. So
Heart of
the Nog
Stones,
episode. Yeah, the
the
Nog
Nog
episode.
episode, yeah, about him
Wanted
giving
to join Starfleet.
and Cisco. I remember that Cisco thought it was just something like, yeah, you ain't
Yeah,
running, so
you're not serious.
you can't be serious. You ain't pulling my
And,
tail and everything else and stuff.
and,
But
and Jake even thought that Nog was kidding. So he says, "Oh yeah, Dad, don't mind him, Dad. He's just kidding around." And Nog's like, "Dude, I was not kidding.
thank you,
You
Jeff.
tell him that I'm fucking serious."
And not to get to our fan real quick. It's so funny how it comes full circle when it comes to this episode. Nog didn't know how to read in the beginning of Star Trek Deep Space Nine,
Mhm.
and now at the by the end, he was in Starfleet, and he was a Lieutenant Junior Gray.
Yeah.
It come full circles about all kinds of things. It was like, wow, Jake
Oh,
really taught him how to read.
well, and not only that, just like say his first official act as Lieutenant JG was what he had to do when he was first applying to show that he can prove himself by doing a cargo manifest.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Oh wow, yeah. But anyway, guys, thank you, Jeff. Y'all stay safe and everything. And oh my goodness, Lord have mercy.
I'm
This,
sending you all the excess warmth I have, Travis, and you
Oh,
can send me all your cold.
yeah. Oh
oh,
my God, it's
I'll
supposed to
I'll
get
send you
cold, cold.
some. I'll send you some of my cold too because it is here.
Yeah, Dave is
Just the
Dave is
last
at a
word
higher
for
elevation.
everyone. Just a last word for everyone. Please keep the people of California in your thoughts.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
please
Yeah,
send
we've had
them a shit ton of rain. Please just send them rain. Just take just a minute from your day and just think of those people. Send them healing, send them strength, and send the rain. Speak to Mother Nature. Send them a shit ton of rain because it is needed.
And leave all
Just
the
so you know, my
negativity.
heart goes out to everyone.
And leave the negativity behind about all the just stuff and everything else. It's human beings out there.
Mhm.
Human beings have suffered. There are people out there who are not celebrities that are who lost their homes and stuff. And you know what? People are neglecting the fact that there are just simple people who don't even know. We don't even know their names. And just like Katie said, just remind. Just give try to give as much you can to everybody, and
Also, as well, please do not forget the wildlife, the animals. They are losing their lives too. They're losing their homes, their habitats. So please take a thought for those as well.
Yeah, and a lot of shelter animals are getting scattered amongst other shelters across the country to get them into a safe place as well.
And you know what? I don't know if anybody heard this and stuff. If you watch this and stuff, but firefighters from both Canada and Mexico have come to the states to California to help them out and everything else. So despite what anybody thinking the political and everything else, guess what? As human beings, as friends, as people who live on this continent, we share this continent. We've got to watch each other's back. But guys, I love you. Peace. Take care.
You too. Good night, everybody. Until next week, hailing frequencies are closed.